Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the People's Real Estate Podcast. I'm excited to have on a dear friend of us, a special guest, a very special guest, our very own broker. I'd say I call him a friend, and just a great person overall. His stats are maxed out, and you'll get a taste of that by the end of this episode. But without further ado, Mr. Matt Escobar.
Señor Escobar.
Thank you for having me. Or you can call me Matt.
Welcome to our humble podcast.
It is a humble. Well, it is
Bienvenido. It's the People's Podcast, man.
Podcast.
We do it for the people, man. The information is for the people, and who better to bring it to you than our own broker, man, Mr. Matt Escobar.
Yeah.
Talk to us, man. Talk to us, buddy.
And by the way, just so you know, Carlos, the jury's still out whether we're friends or not. I got to make sure you're not crazy or anything like that.
Maybe after this episode.
I'm giving out red flags still, Matt. Come on.
So, Matt, look, man. So, like, it says in the title, it's the People's Podcast, right? So,
Yeah.
La información es para la gente, man. So, what we try to do is just get people that are involved in real estate, friends of ours, colleagues of ours, right? And obviously, like we said, we're introducing you as the broker, the head honcho over at Argent Realty. And usually how we started off, man, is we want to know like the origin story, right? Like every superhero has an origin story. Yeah. What's Matt Escobar's origin story, man? Talk to us.
Well, my story goes back quite a bit. I've been here in the States ever since I was 2 years old.
Okay.
All right. So I was born back home. I was born in El Salvador.
In El Salvador, okay.
Yeah. And
See, I didn't even know that. I thought you were born here.
No, I wasn't born
You would
here.
never know that unless you ask them. That's what people tell me, unless you tell them,
Yeah, I was
Tengo
born.
esperanza todavía. También.
That's right. I was born back home.
So that's why he's not president.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go down, meet Bukele, and say, "Hey, listen, train me,
From one 6-foot person to another.
That's right. And so anyway, I'm born. Now you guys are going to know my age, 1976. So that's 2 years before the war.
Wow,
breaks out in
okay.
El Salvador. And my mother, from Spain, she's from Barcelona. Well, was because I lost her in 2019. But anyway, she met my dad after her first marriage went down the drain. Had 4 kids. Okay, she ended up meeting a doctor in Spain who had essentially his whole family had migrated down to El Salvador after the Second World War, because a lot of people during every World War kind of just in Europe, they said, we don't know what's going on. Let's just try to get out of here, right? And do something else. So that's what they did. They migrated. They ended up in El Salvador. Father was a doctor. They had money. They ended up setting up a clinic, and then a couple of clinics. So when it was time for the son to take over, sent him over to Spain to study medicine and come back. Well, in that time, he finds my mom, marries my mother, brings her back.
Change of plan.
She has kids, 4 kids with him. And then about 13 years later, the marriage dissolves. And, my dad, so she's got 4 kids. My dad has 4 kids from a previous marriage. It's like the Latino Brady Bunch. Okay. And so they did not want to have any more kids at all. That was not in the cards. But, like I always told them, I said, no tenían cable y después de 6 cervezas, mira, aquí estoy yo. So that's right. Regia or something. I don't know what Dad was drinking that day, but I popped out and, I'm the baby of the family.
That's crazy, man.
But so am I.
And so we fast forward 2 years later, we've got the war breaks out and everything. And my dad almost gets killed coming home from work, parking his truck. He worked at a company called Kismet back then, which was probably like saying, Sears or something like that.
Like a department store.
Well, it wasn't really a department. It was appliances, but it was major appliances for commercial grade.
Okay.
But they had their...
That's a pretty good job, though, for
This is like Simang, I think, does that.
Yeah, so they had their service people, and engineers and everything else. And so my dad works for them because my dad was the only one in his family that put himself through full school.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were farmers. They were poor, dirt poor.
Campesinos.
Yeah. So because when I went in 96, they still did not have electricity at my dad's house where he was born. Still didn't have it. Okay. So that tells you how far, I mean, this was rural, right?
Yeah.
Guess I'm thinking. And so anyway, my dad, is working for this company. He's a refrigeration technician. He's an electrical engineer. And so he's one of the higher ups, not super up there, but managing and, overseeing things. And when there was major problems, he would go. Well, one of the things that he carried in his truck, because they did large, commercial air conditioning. They did large for buildings and things like that. They did for restaurants and all this stuff. So he carried the gallon or the tanks of Freon in his truck. So he's parking his truck, and we lived in that time. We lived in Colonia Escalon, which was a pretty much well-to-do kind of saying Bethesda.
Escalon, yeah.
Pretty good neighborhood.
Really good neighborhood, apartment, condo, whatever it was. I don't know. And my mom's up there. She's on the balcony. She's watching this all unfold. My dad pulls in with his truck. He grabs the refrigerant, right?
Freon.
The Freon out of the truck. And immediately, without missing a beat, one of the guys that was stationed there, because military was stationed there, comes running over, all right, screaming at him, yelling at him, or yelling at somebody. And essentially, they thought he was one of the rebels, right?
Oh, okay.
Because they used to make homemade bombs.
He's bringing a bomb or something,
right?
Oh man,
that's how they made homemade bombs. And so they make him kneel down. He puts his rifle in his mouth, literally.
That's crazy.
Okay, and it was about to blow my dad away.
What?
Luckily, there was a lieutenant that had been stationed there for like 8 months. That didn't know my dad well, but knew
he's not a rebel.
Because my dad would come out, say good morning, talk to him, this, that, the other. So the guy ran over, saved his life.
Wow.
Okay. And it was at that moment that
did your dad not wear a work uniform, or he's just in regular clothes?
No, he's wearing a work uniform, but
the guy doesn't care.
People didn't care.
People didn't care.
They're just looking at time, bro. It's a bomb.
They're looking at the potential bomb. So anyway, so
you're like 2 years old right now?
I'm 2 years old at this point.
Oh man,
this is 1978. So that very day, my mother and dad, we're out of here. This is crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. And my mom, being from Europe, being from Spain, is telling my father, look, my family has lived through this kind of crap. Okay. Because, she was born in 1940. So World War II was right at the cusp of kind of coming out of it, still a couple years out. But, so there was a lot of that mental anguish of this is going to happen here, craziness. Let's get out. Let's leave. And so it was my mother that actually left first. She got a visa because my dad was not able to get a visa. He went and, fue a hacer la cola a las 6 de la mañana and took all his paperwork, and they were like, nah, usted no.
Not you, buddy.
Denied. My mother goes, and of course, because she's a Spanish
European passport.
Yeah, she's a Spanish citizen. They didn't care. They were like, sure, here you go.
Travel.
Done deal. And so she came to the States first.
And she brought you?
No. That story gets even worse. I'm telling you. I've told my siblings we need to write a book about my
this is a great.
story.
It's a great start already. It's a great start to a series.
Yeah,
this is start the movie, bro.
Yeah, my mom, and I'll make this short for you, but
we got time, brother. We want to hear it.
My mother came on the guise of having a job for her here already.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So keep in mind, this is 1978 here in D.C., Maryland, Virginia. There were hardly any Latinos here.
She came here. So this was the first place she came to, the DMV?
First place. And the reason she came here was back home, she had a friend that was connected to the embassy here and put the word out and said, hey, can you find my friend a job? And so word got back. Look, the embassy, the Argentinian embassy, is looking for I'm sorry I had to call it out, but I'm calling it out. But yeah, that's water under the bridge. You'll understand why I say that.
Got you.
So Argentinian embassy is looking for somebody to do housekeeping, that kind of thing, the usual stuff, right? Mom's like, great, I'll take it. So she comes over, and she comes over on like a Tuesday. Okay. She gets picked up from Reagan, taken over to the ambassador's house. She meets everybody. She gets a detail of, her daily routine. And the idea is she's living at the property too. She's a stay in, live in caretaker, you know, housekeeping, cooking, doing the cleaning, everything. Great. Everything's going fantastic. Tuesday night, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, she's serving them, you know, doing the usual thing. Hey, coffee, this, that, breakfast, making lunch, making dinner, you know, doing the laundry, doing all that. And she has her own quarters, her own room that she stays in. Friday night that week, my mother is getting ready to go to bed. And so she goes back down one last time. And she asks, you know, the ambassador, she says, hey, I'm about to turn in. Sorry. I'm about to turn in. Is there anything you guys need? And the ambassador says no. The ambassador's wife says no. Maria, your mom's name, Maria. Of course, as usual, Maria, right? And so she says, okay, good night. You know, I'll see you guys in the morning. And she starts heading up the stairs. And immediately the ambassador's wife snaps at her and says, where are you going? What are you doing? She says, I'm turning in for the night. Is there anything else you need? And she says, no. You can't stay here Saturday and Sunday. You only live here Monday through Friday.
Wow.
So it's already like 9 o'clock at night. And they put her in a car and they drop her off in Langley Park. And they say, be back here on Monday morning. We'll pick you up first thing in the morning. My mother had no place to go, no money in her pocket. And back in those days, you may or may not remember this, but back in those days, Langley Park, where McCory's was, and where the what is it? I forget which bank is on that side. Where the Starbucks is.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, where the Starbucks is now. Yeah. So that part, that shopping center right there, that used to be where all the buses. That was the bus depot, almost. They didn't park there, but they would drop you off there. So that's where you waited for the bus. And I mean, literally, you would see number 16 and 15, and that, they're all pulling in right there. So they had little benches in front of like every store almost. Well, let's say every few, 30 feet or so, there was benches. So my mom slept on a bench in that shopping center for the next almost 3 months until she was able to scrounge up. And this is from Friday night until Monday morning.
That's insane.
Until she was able to scrounge up enough money to get herself a room somewhere. Yeah, most people don't know that story. People that are even very close to me don't know that story.
Wow, man.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that is crazy.
And
yeah, that's personal.
It took a little bit of time, but and she did not even mention this to my father, because he would have lost his mind, because he's in El Salvador taking care of me.
Right. Okay. I don't even know how that would have made him feel. Like, I got to get over there quick.
Absolutely. Who knows what he would have done?
I would have crushed him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it was. And she would tell me stories about, how she would, because she was scared, obviously. She's in a country, she doesn't speak the language, she doesn't know anyone, she doesn't know anything, right? She doesn't even know where she's at in Langley Park. She has no idea. So she would just kind of walk around as much as she could until the tiredness just kind of took over and she needed to go to sleep. But yeah, she would sleep, from like 4 a.m. until 6, 7 when the sun came out, and then she'd
can you imagine?
Roam around.
It's just like she's just that's
it's
another
so
thing.
Extreme. We don't know if it was in the cold, if it was in the
and then there's
heat.
it's like Langley Park too, and you never know. And it's just her by herself,
her by herself.
That's
And these people, bro, they had to know.
She didn't get a heads up when she first,
No, she had no heads. That's what I said. She was under the impression, okay, I've got somewhere to live.
I mean, it would only be logical.
That's insane.
So that's a card that they played.
I sense discrimination from that lady.
Well, I can tell you that she at least, got a little bit of a venganza there, because the way that she left, my mother left the embassy, she... Apparently, the ambassador's wife one day said something to her that just made my mother snap. And so my mother turns around and punches her in the face and runs the hell out of Dodge. Dropped her to the floor. My mom was mean, man. Let me tell you. She
was tough. I mean, you could already tell she was a tough lady, man.
Oh, yeah. She was tough.
That's
she did not,
crazy.
put up with bullshit. And,
wow, bro. Yeah. All right, so she establishes herself. She gets a little room, I guess.
She gets a little room, and you know how they say when you're a kid, your vivid memories start coming around age 5. In some cases, a little bit earlier than that. So for me, it was a lot earlier. I mean, I have vivid memories of being 2 years old with my sister. Vivid memories of my mother leaving. I remember when my mom left, the day she left and got on the plane, I was on my dad's shoulders. And I could see her through the window. And, over there was no terminal. It's just, you got to go outside. And she's outside waving to me.
Wow.
And I'm 2 years old, and I can remember this.
That's crazy, dude.
I can remember this.
I can barely remember what I did last week, bro.
And, one of the more vivid memories I also have that I've always kept with me, because, we talk about everywhere, everyone talks about where they come from and what they've done and this, that, the other. But one thing that people really don't share is things like this. That really put things in perspective and keep you humble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've had successes in my life, thank God, knock on wood. But I always remember where we came from and what we had to struggle with, right? And so I remember being 3 years old, sleeping on the hardwood floors because we had nothing.
Yeah.
We had no furniture, we had no beds, we had nothing. Okay. And sleeping on a hardwood floor in an apartment in Langley Park, sharing the room was myself, mom, and dad. But sharing the apartment because the apartment wasn't theirs. It belonged to another gentleman. His name was Juan. And so he gave them a little spot there and said, hey, listen, he felt bad. You can take that room. We'll move our kid out of that room. And, that's how it was. People helped each other out.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, we had nothing. We had absolutely nothing. I remember sleeping on the floor, and my parents ended up getting a small little mattress given to them, somebody that moved or whatever. And they put me on that mattress, and they continued sleeping on the floor until they could scrape enough money to buy a bed. Yeah. So, it puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
Puts things in perspective.
That's awesome, because this kind of answering a lot of questions for me about Matt and his character.
How I am and the craziness.
No, because I know me and him talk about a lot. We know that, the success that you've achieved, and we'll get into this in a little bit. That's why I want to segue into is that, I kind of tell him like, yo, I've met successful people, but they always have this kind of like,
this aura.
Yeah, like
like an arrogance almost.
Yeah, and with Matt, with you, we don't really sense that, and it's like it's not a front, because I've known you not a long time, but from the time that I've met you, like you've been through and through transparent. You're really about like helping people out. You mean what you say, and you say what you mean.
That's right.
And I've always told him, I'm like, yo, Matt.
It doesn't compute sometimes.
Yeah, I'm
right?
like, yo, why is he still so humble? Like, But this puts this kind of answers that why, and you've said it is because you know where you come from and you don't forget.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
None of us can forget.
Yeah.
None of us can forget. Especially, the newer generation born here.
Yeah.
Some of them know the struggles that the parents have gone through. Others don't know the struggles that the parents have gone through. Right. Yeah. And it's totally different now. It's totally different because back then, again, you didn't have a community here supporting you, right?
Yeah.
So you have folks that come in nowadays and vienen con todo.
Yeah.
Vienen con todo. Vienen donde dormir, donde quedarse. Tienen familia, tienen amistades, tienen trabajo. Ya tienen trabajo.
Sí, es que ya hay, y como que ya hay un sistema, ¿verdad? Que la persona que ya llega a un lugar de estos, como que ya, como dice, ya tiene el trabajo y todo, pero a la misma vez como que no sale de ahí también, ¿verdad? Porque como ya no hay esa ¿cómo te puedo decir? No es suficiente o no es bastante la presión de salir adelante,
estudiar el idioma.
Estudiar el idioma. Porque you don't have to.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You know what I equate that to? I equate it to them, they get comfortable, right? They get comfortable because maybe the living situation here, compared, the way we look at it is you're still not living a good life, but to them, compared to where they
it's an upgrade.
How they were living back in their country,
upgrade.
they're like, I'm living luxury.
Yeah.
And I feel like they get stuck in this circle of being
there's like a little that's what I was saying as an immigrant myself, like there's an ecosystem set up, right? And that's what I'm saying. But back then, because there wasn't that community to back you up, you had to assimilate on your own, basically, you know?
That's right.
especially, you know, Matt's talking in the 70s. I'm talking 80s, you know, early 90s. Matt's talking in the 70s, bro.
Yeah.
You know, even when I was growing up and I, you know, ya habían tienditas latinas, you know, ya la Columbia was already set up. He's talking pre this stuff, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is that hay gente que viene y como va a trabajar, ¿verdad? Trabaja solo con latinos, habla español all day, right? Después llega a la casa, tiene que ir a enviar dinero, va a la tienda, le hablan en español. You know, tiene que ir a arreglar la laptop, en español, tiene que comprar el teléfono. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it doesn't really, there's not that force, you know, that outside force or pressure to really get out there. You
don't have a need.
Yeah, a need, I guess. You know, you don't necessarily, I mean, not that people aren't doing it, but there isn't that need like when, you know, Matt was around. So how was that, Matt? Because I was one of 3 Hispanic kids in my elementary school, let's say, and that was like late 80s. You see what I'm saying?
I was one of 2 in my elementary school. One of 2, and the other one, she did not speak Spanish. Okay, she was born here. I can't remember where she was from, but she didn't speak Spanish. So now we're into the well, in my elementary school, for kindergarten, first grade, second and third grade, New Hampshire Estates Elementary. If you know where that is, that's still around, baby. It's right there. It's right there by Piney Branch, Carroll.
Okay, Carroll, Piney Branch.
Yep.
Okay.
It's over there. And so I grew up in Langley Park, right there where those Quebec Terrace.
Oh, Quebec Terrace, yeah, of course, okay. Yeah.
Which is opposite of Nob Hill and those, right there off of Piney Branch.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so in that elementary school, there was none. I was the only one. I was the only one. And I am proud to say that not only was I the only one, but I was also in the gifted and talented class.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Your boy was actually somewhat inteligente back then. I don't know about now. But yeah, I was in gifted and talented. My parents were so elated with that. They were like, you know what I mean? I mean, there was a sense of pride.
We got lucky with one of them.
Los otros no salieron tan inteligentes.
That's what my parents always say, man. Oh, my God.
Lo va a sacar de la pobreza.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of translating for them. I mean, I remember my mom busting her butt trying to learn English. She carried around a dictionary, a small little travel dictionary when she got here. That's how she was able to open her bank accounts. That's how she was able to open, do little things like that with her dictionary. She'd walk in and, she'd look up the word and say it. And then,
translate
that was
in some way, shape, or form, she got her point across.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, this is before Inglés sin Barreras.
I was just about to say that.
Follow me to America. This is before
Rosetta Stone.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah. My mother had the Follow Me to America series.
I literally haven't heard that since I was a little kid.
I've never heard of that. I've heard of Rosetta Stone, Inglés sin Barreras. I think that was pretty much it.
Follow Me was the first one. VHS tapes.
That's the one they used to promote like on Sábado Gigante.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
They had a whole package. It was like this big
package.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was big money.
That's crazy.
Only 9 payments of $19.99.
Yeah, right.
I think if I start looking at my mom's boxes from in the garage or whatever at her house, I think I would still find those tapes. Wow. I guarantee you they're in there. I'm going to look for them.
Amazing.
I'm going to look for them. I'm going to bring them in.
Yeah.
So you guys can see Inglés sin Barreras, on VHS.
Yeah.
And so does she speak English like?
Well, yeah, she passed in 2019, but she did learn, and she learned how to read, how to write it. And her, of course she had a thick accent, and she always had her acento de Barcelona.
Tío.
Español y catalán hasta el final. Esa tan dura que tú sabes, tío.
Yeah.
She always had that. Always. But no, I mean, Mom made it a point. My dad, since he had to, immediately start working and do that, it was a little bit slower for him. He never really learned how to read and write it, but he made it a point to learn how to speak it as well as he could to defend himself and be able to carry on a conversation. So era en inglés un poquito macheteado, but he got through. I mean, he became a property manager, for God's sake.
Oh, there we go.
For right there in Langley or Quebec Terrace. Yeah. So he was working for the guy that owned part of Quebec Terrace. Seams Properties is what it was called, and so he became the property manager there, and he helped out all immigrants and minorities that he could that would come in and apply, because people, didn't really have credit, or they had, issues they had to pay in cash. And I kind of,
because he understood them, because he came up through that struggle,
He understood. And that's one of the reasons why Mr. Seams hired him, was because he's like, I know who my tenants are going to be, and I need someone that understands them.
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
But I remember growing up, because we worked where we lived, right? Dad did. And that's where I learned a little bit of construction, remodeling, plumbing, electrical, all that. It was with my dad, being on the remodel crew, because I started working early on. I mean, 12 years old. I'm like, Dad, give me a mop. Let me do something.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm ready. I want to get a little bit of change in my pocket.
Yeah.
And so, Dad was like, okay, here, you can start with doing all this sweeping and the mopping of the buildings and that kind of thing when you come home from school and whatever. So I started working. I mean, even before that, when I was 5 years old, I'm going around with my dad, carrying tools for him. He's under a sink trying to fix a leak, and he's like, hey, hand me the pliers. Hey, hand me the Phillips screwdriver. Hey, give me this. Give me the crescent wrench. So
that's where that work ethic comes from.
Yeah, it was
mentality.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I tell my wife all the time. We're gonna impress our kids with that kind of same thought process, right?
Yeah.
But
so I want to ask you, what was the origin story of you getting into real estate? Your past, I can say, like, it had a big impact on who you are now.
Right.
So what was that? Your dad getting involved in real estate and stuff like that, managing properties?
So here's another story for you, and this is actually a catalyst as to why my parents separated and divorced when I was 12.
Okay.
So my mom and dad, by the mid 80s, had saved up about $30,000.
Wow.
Okay. Which mid 80s, that was a good bit of money.
Yeah.
All right. There was places out here, probably out in Capitol Heights and all these areas, where they could have bought a house in cash.
Yeah.
All right. Langley Park, those kind of areas, maybe about $50,000, $60,000, they would have bought a house. And so they have this money, and my mother had developed a friendship with this older couple, Cuban couple, and they lived right off of Adelphi, over there, like where the University of Maryland is, University Boulevard, Adelphi, right there. That neighborhood that's to the right, where the big pond is.
Okay.
Over there, really nice neighborhood, single family home. A lot of people don't realize Langley Park back in the day was Jewish. It was a Jewish community. It wasn't a Latino community. It just started changing throughout the years. Yeah. Okay. And so they lived in that part of the neighborhood, and it was a really nice neighborhood. And so they were older, and they were retiring to Florida. And they offer my mom and dad the house, and they're like, hey, we'll give you a deal. Why don't you buy it from us? You guys need a house. My father, being from back home and everything, scared of the whole situation of ending up with a loan, because that's not how they did it back then.
Yeah. They're scared of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they were selling the house to him for like $60,000. So it was a matter of, down payment, this, that, the other, so on and so on. And he was like, no. So he got scared of that. And mom's like, okay, fine. So they didn't buy that. About a year or so, maybe 2 years later, my father not only did property management for this guy Seams, but there was two brothers that owned one building, the corner building, and I know which building it is. It's 1000 for those of you that are listening that live in Quebec Terrace. 1000 Quebec Terrace, that one on the corner. They were investors in Baltimore. Okay. They and I can't remember for the life of me where they were from, but I think they were Salvadorian. But they were born here, grew up here, studied here, the whole nine. And so they had apartment complexes in Baltimore. They just so happened to buy this one because the person that owned it before them, they knew, so on and so forth, whatever. And so they hired my dad to take care of it for them and said, listen, on your time off from Seams, can you take care of repairs? And my dad said, sure, no problem. They worked out a deal. Okay. So these two brothers eventually decided after a couple of years of owning the building, we're just going to sell it. The logistics, and they're out, out in Baltimore and having to drive here every now and then. They're like, nah. So they encouraged my father to buy it. They said, hey, listen, we want to sell this, but you've got first dibs. Okay. We want to help you out, right? Latino helping another Latino.
That's amazing.
They're like, we want you to buy it. My dad's like, I can't afford this. They were selling it to him for like $120,000. 14-unit apartment building.
That's
okay. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah, but back then that's a world of money too, though.
That's a world of money. That's a world of money. $120,000. So they tell my mom and dad, listen, go to the bank. You guys have a little bit of money saved up. Go to the bank, see what you can get approved for. If you can't get approved, or whatever you are approved for, we'll finance the rest. Yeah. We'll do seller financing for you. My dad got way too scared. Said no. Okay. So my mother she was not happy because my mom was the one with the business sense. Yeah. Okay. My dad was just work hard, save the money, help the family. Mom owned her own business back in El Salvador. Okay. And so she was like, no, we've got to do this. Fast forward that 30, 40 grand that they had saved up so hard, worked for, blah, blah, blah. My dad ends up starting to help his family get over here to the States, helping, his two brothers, his primos to get over here. So two brothers, dos primos. Anyway, blew through the money. And my mom warned them and said, you think they're going to pay us back? They're not going to pay us back. Okay. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So that fast forward a few years later, mom was like, this is craziness. It was a fight. It was a fight at home with that all the time. Cause my mother was like, you had an opportunity and you let it go.
Yeah.
And she had it all mapped out. She's like, we'll live in one of the apartments. We're not paying any rent. She could see it. She was a numbers person.
Yeah.
He couldn't see it. Yeah. He couldn't see it. And so, I tell you that story so I can tell you the following because you're asking me the origins. So I worked, before I got into real estate, I did 10 years of retail management. Okay. Mm-hmm. I started Tandy Corporation, which was Radio Shack in Langley Park. That's where I worked at in high school. That was my first real job. And I say real job because it's not my dad handing me a job. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's me going out there and getting a job. Yeah. All right. I start there early on. I'm in there. I think this is 1991.
How old are you?
Well, I was 14 years old. I legally could not work yet, but I impressed the store manager so much that she was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll figure this out." Because I was only a few months away from being 15 and getting my work permit, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I started there. And so it was retail, consumer electronics sales, commission sales. I go from there to a small little outfit called Belmont TV, which is no longer in existence, but Belmont was fantastic. And from Belmont, I managed 2 stores for them, by the way. So there I am. I graduate high school and I'm working for Belmont TV. I was going to college, what felt like full time, because I would get off of work at 5:00 and get into Montgomery College by 6. And I was studying computer science and electronics because I wanted to be an engineer. And so I'm working full time and I'm also going to school at night. And then eventually I had to quit school after a year because it was either go to school, stay in college, and starve, or work and survive.
Make some money. Yeah.
Okay. And so I decided, you know what, I need to work. And that's what I did. And so there I am. I'm at this point, I'm 19 years old. And I'm managing 2 stores for them. I'm the assistant manager for the Lay Hill store. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much I had the assistant manager tag, but the manager was the owner. So I couldn't take that tag line, right? I couldn't take that. So
sorry to interrupt. They held out for a while, right, Matt? The one here in Gunma?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They were there to I want to say maybe early 2000s.
They were there until about 2013, I'm going to say 2015 or something. We could probably look it up.
Yeah, dude. They held out for a while.
They started in 1940 down in D.C. on Belmont and 14th.
Wow.
Okay, that's why it was called Belmont TV.
Wow.
And they had expanded. At one point, they had, I don't know, more than 10, I think, locations or whatever. And
they were known here locally.
Yeah, they were very well known locally. And the only reason that they shut down was because none of the kids wanted to take it over. The old guard was like, all right, we're done. We're in our 70s. We're done. Yeah. And there was nobody to take it over because they were still continuing on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Wow.
And so anyway, there I was managing 2 stores for them. They fired the manager over at the Laurel store. The store was losing $5,000 a month. And so they said, do you want this? We want you to have it. Go in there, fix the store, do what you got to do, make it shine. I said, sure. And I'm a kid. I mean, by all intents and purposes, I'm a kid. At 19 years old. But the one thing I really did well was applying myself to business. Mm-hmm. And the owners saw that. Mm-hmm. And that's why they fired the manager that was there. And he'd been their manager for, I think, almost 15 years.
Wow.
Okay. And so I agreed to it. I said, look, I'm going to do it, but I'm only doing it to fix the store up, get it profitable, and you guys find somebody to take over. Because I can't, to me back then, I was living at that point with my mom, and I'm living on Parker Avenue, which is right here, Arcola in Georgia.
Yeah.
To go from there all the way to Laurel, Route 1, that was a hell of a drive.
Yeah.
Okay. Unlike now where we drive all over the place, right? Yeah. So I said, look, I'll do that. So the first 30 days, I was $10,000 behind Glenmont. So the first 30 days. Wow. So at that point, they realized that I knew how to run a business, right? And so when the time came, I quit, and that's another funny story too. When the time came to quit and move on to Circuit City, they did something that they had never done for anybody else. They offered me essentially pay for my schooling. They said, because I told them, that was important to me. Mm-hmm. And in 60 years, they had never done that for anybody, for any employee. But they wanted me to sign a 5-year contract. Okay. And the reason that came about was because one day I'm sitting, it's literally like this. Okay. There's a desk. That's the front of the store. So that desk faces that way, and I'm facing that way. So the owner is sitting there, and we're eating lunch. Okay. And, it's a slow day. So he turns around and he says to me, Matt, just curious. He's like, what's your 5-year plan? And I'm thinking at this, immediately processing it. I'm thinking he's probably asking me this because he expects me to say, I don't know. Yeah. What he didn't know was that I had more than just a 5-year plan in my head. So I immediately fired back at him. I said, well, actually, I'm glad he asked me. His name's Arthur. I said, I'm glad you asked me. All right. I said, my first plan is I want to finish school. I said, I also want to buy my own property, buy my own house. That I just had ingrained because Mom was always like, you need to own a house, right? And then I said, the last thing is within the next 5 years, I want to be making at least $50,000 a year. $50,000 a year. Imagine this. This is 97. Yeah. This is 1997.
This is a Wolf of Wall Street moment. He's like, you show me your pay stub, I'll quit right now.
Right. So I'm like, I want to make at least $50,000 a year. And without missing a beat, he spins his chair around and he starts laughing.
Oh, man.
Oh. And he says, $50,000 a year, you're dreaming. Yeah. That's what
I was feeling.
I mean, I can see this happening and replaying in my mind as I talk to you. I've never forgotten that.
Well, thank you, Arthur, right?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Arthur. Absolutely. And I did thank him after that because I still maintained a really good relationship with him. I would go back and visit the store. When I quit retail, I went and I was getting my license. Mm-hmm. I went back to help him one day. Well, actually, I went back to say hello one day, and he was stressed out because one of the guys had just quit. The guys that did deliveries had just quit. And I said, I'll do the deliveries for you.
Fuck at it, for real?
I did. I'm serious.
I mean, yeah, that's Matt.
And so I stuck around for like 2 months until he found somebody. And of course, they begged me to come back, and I'm like, no, you can't afford me now.
Yeah, exactly.
At this moment, you were.
No, I wasn't in real estate. I was getting my license.
Oh, you were getting your license.
Yeah. So back to the retail thing. So anyway, so that was the catalyst. That conversation was the catalyst because I'm one of those individuals. You can't tell me that I can't do something.
That's crazy.
Okay, and telling me that making $50,000 was pipe dream.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, I knew I need to leave this place.
I mean, but just to I'm gonna put it just to play devil's advocate and speak for Arthur here. You were a 19-year-old kid trying to make $50,000 like in the early 90s, man. Like that wasn't like that's like someone right now, some 19-year-old kid telling me, hey, I'm leaving here because I'm gonna make 200 grand somewhere else. I'd be like, yeah, right. I mean,
but this is after I had turned around the store.
That's true. I mean, you had proven yourself.
They paid that manager $50,000 a year.
How
they were paying me $6 an hour plus commissions, and I went over there and made the store profitable in 30 days.
Okay, so there was a reason you threw out that specific number.
Damn
then.
straight.
Got you. Okay, now I'm getting it. Yeah.
So and for me that was an ask. That was a big ask.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to make 50 grand. And within the next 5 years, but that wasn't crazy. That would have put me at 24.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so and that was a catalyst for me going to Circuit City because Circuit City back in those days, and for those of you that don't know Circuit City, because I'm sure there's a lot of young listeners, that was Best Buy's biggest competitor.
Yeah.
They were here first actually before Best Buy.
Well, that's what I was saying. So Best Buy was the new kid on the block.
They were the new kid.
Yeah. Circuit City had it locked down, like
countrywide.
You remember Circuit City?
Nationwide, they had it locked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They had about 550 stores back then.
Yeah.
Nationwide.
Yeah,
So,
I remember Best Buy, Matt. If obviously this is your space. You correct me if I'm wrong. Best Buy came with an angle that you could do stuff online or something.
No, it wasn't that.
They
came in with the simple, we're just going to take market share. So because their model was different, right? So Circuit City was all commission based. The sales counselors were commission based. Best Buy said, we don't need to do commission. We'll just pay folks an hourly wage. Okay. They weren't as product knowledgeable as the Circuit City folks were. Circuit City also had higher end equipment. Okay. But it appealed to the masses because now, since their model was different, they didn't have all the expense that Circuit City had, right? Because Circuit City had to pay commissions to you to sell a VCR TV or whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't, right? So now it allowed them to have lower prices. And so what they did was they came in and they just said, we're going to just go out there and take market share. They put a Best Buy literally where every Circuit City was.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
Right, Best Buy, that was like a big disruptor back in the day, you know what I mean?
And they had a lower price. And they probably, I don't know if it's true or not, but, they probably cut their margins a little deep just so that they could take the customer base.
Did they end up
once the customer
buying
base
them out or something?
No.
Circuit City just died
once
out.
the customer base was taken, now we can increase our prices again, right?
Yeah.
And that's literally what happened. Now, Circuit City could have stayed alive, but management, upper management, ownership, well, I shouldn't say ownership, but, whoever was running the company back then, I can't remember. And those folks, they just made really bad decisions.
Yeah.
Really bad decisions because, in business, you cannot become your competition.
Yeah.
You can't become your competition. You could take cues from them, but you need to be your own. You need to stand out as your own, right? And so Circuit tried to become Best Buy. They got rid of the commission sales counselors. Then they got rid of, one of their biggest money makers, which was appliances. That was a dumb move. So they made a lot of mistakes. And even us poor, peasants down at the bottom.
You could see it.
We could see it.
Yeah, you could see it coming.
We could see it. We could see all the mistakes that they were making.
That always fascinates me, man, when you look back in time, right? Especially in business, right?
Yeah.
And just to see where, like, if they would have just made this decision to go this way, like Kodak. Right? Like Kodak, they basically invented the cameras that are in these phones and all that, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And now where's Kodak? Like, nobody knows about. I mean, they're still there, but nobody knows about Kodak. Like, you know what I mean?
That's right. They're not the powerhouse that they used to be.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm saying. So that always fascinates me in business, man.
So I get out of after that I end up being a sales manager for Circuit City. I was in line to be a GM for them. Then I went over to Best Buy, same thing. I got eventually tired of it. I had 10 years in retail management. I managed, $100 million stores, $150 million stores, 200 employees in them, that kind of thing. So I was exposed to a lot of corporate America and how it all works, right? And then I got tired of the same thing where I did, really great things for the company, and all I got was a pat on the back and never really got promoted. Okay. And so I quit. One day I just said, you know what? Enough's enough. I pulled into the parking lot and I didn't want to go inside.
How old were you when you quit?
Oh, I was that way. Now I got to go.
I like seeing him getting him into his into the Back to the Future car.
Yeah, right.
DeLorean, and just going back in his mind and stuff.
So I was 24. I was 24 when I quit.
All right.
I hadn't turned 25 yet. I was 24. And I went on vacation. I went to Spain to visit the family in Spain because my mom's side of the family, they all live in Spain. Nobody left. Well, they left to like Argentina and that kind of thing, and then they came back. But none to the U.S., right? So I went to visit. Came back, and I was staying with my mom because at that point, when I left Best Buy, I had just come back to, I went to Chicago. They offered me the Chicago market, so I was out there for a little over a year. Came back to Sterling, and I grand opened the Sterling, Virginia store, Best Buy. Okay. And so I was living with mom because, she's like, why don't you save your money and buy yourself your townhouse that you want, this, that, the other. I was like, okay, cool.
Ain't nothing wrong living with mom.
Yeah, so I lived with my mother. And so I come back from vacation and I'm sitting around, again, one of these. It's funny how you remember certain moments.
The moments, right?
Right. They're locked in your brain. Kind of like, you've always heard people say that they remember certain songs because of the moment or what it meant or what happened or whatever.
Triggers.
And so I'm sitting there with mom, and I can see it like yesterday. We're having dinner, and my mom looks up, and she's like, well, what are you going to do with your life? Almost like, you bum. What are you doing? You're bumming around the house. What's going on? And I had interviews already. I had gone on a couple interviews with Compaq.
Okay, Compaq. Okay, yeah.
I had gone on interviews with a couple of other BB. Is it BB? The clothing store, remember?
Nah.
They wanted me to be a DM.
Oh, like
training.
BEBE?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Nah, I don't know.
BB, Bebe, whatever.
That's still around, though.
Yeah, they're still around.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
The
fashion store. Yeah,
it's like a bedazzle.
I remember
the
that.
only way I remember that brand is because like their shirts are always bedazzled BB.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I went to interview with them
This is all like management positions.
To be a DM, district manager in training and that kind of thing. And Lexus. Over here in Silver Spring.
Surprised you didn't take that.
Right off a break. Oh, that one I was very close to taking.
That's what I'm saying. I was surprised
because I love cars, right? Yeah. So I was really close to taking that one. But I didn't. And so my mom's like, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, Mom. I've got a couple of leads here. Let me just, I really don't want to go back into retail because retail, for the most part, listen, retail is fantastic, right? When you're starting to get into the sales arena. But then after a while, it'll wear on you.
Yeah.
It'll wear on you because of, late nights, because of holidays, because of weekends.
Especially within a corporate structure.
Yeah, I never had weekends off. Yeah. Never.
That's the best time to sell.
The only time I had weekends off was on vacation.
Yeah.
When I was in retail. 10 years. Yeah, I missed a lot of birthdays and stuff from my nieces and nephews because I couldn't be there. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And the holidays, you're working 80 hours plus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Christmas, all that time, you're working a lot in retail.
So my mom's like, why don't you try real estate? Okay. And my first knee-jerk reaction was, Mami, eso es para mujeres.
What?
She got so pissed at me. She's like,
what made you say that?
Because that was the sentiment back then.
Was it like that? Yeah.
It was mainly, women doing real estate. You didn't see a lot of guys doing real estate.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't believe that.
That's hard for me to believe. The residential space.
Residential space, sure. Commercial was a different story.
All guys, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and my mom got really pissed off at me, and she's like, "Call your sister. she'll tell you all about the business." So my sister, Elizabeth, about a year before that, had become a loan officer. Okay. And God, I'm so full of stories, man. That's another story. And so she goes ahead and, I call her up and I'm like, hey, what is this all about? And blah, blah, blah. And she starts giving me the downline. And I'm like, okay, fine. How much can I make? And she explains the breakdown of the commission, 6%, 3%, this, that, the other. And I said, how much was your house? Because she had bought a house about a year or so before. So it was like $120,000. $120,000 Rambler right here off of Bushy, if you know where Bush is, right?
Can't wheat them.
Yeah, in Wheaton. 120, Carlos. Keep that in mind.
Oh, right? Yeah, I am.
Property's over.
That's 520 now.
I'm just thinking like, because you haven't talked about any piece of real estate that was worth more than 200,000.
Yeah, well, back then.
No. Right, back then. And I'm just thinking, I'm comparing it to like prices Carlos, now. I'm like,
I hear stories, and Matt can vouch, man, that like in D.C., you got to understand, D.C. was bad at one point, right? They were giving the buildings away. They were like, please buy this building, right? Like they would incentivize people to buy.
There was so much violence and things going on down there that people didn't want them. People didn't want them. So
I'm like, guys, in real estate, I'm a baby. In this conversation, I'm like, I'm just learning. I'm just sitting in. I'm just, because both of them have been around way longer than I have, and it's just like, I'm in awe because you talking about how much real estate, and this is why I vouch for real estate so much because I see the potential. Yeah.
And it's extremely important for our folks to understand what this means and what it means to own property, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, look, I talked to my sister. She tells me all the ins and outs. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I got into the business. I got into the business through that, and I started working at Long and Foster. But I was only there for about 6 months, and then I left. My sister and I had a strained relationship after that because one of my first very early on clients wasn't my first. I got my first client on my own. I started closing deals my very first month. I got my license, my pocket license has a date of January 23rd. Okay. I closed my first deal February 28th.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay. So I was already out there pounding pavement, trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And this is at a time when it would take about a year to sell a house.
Yeah.
A standard $100,000 house. All right. We were signing listing agreements for a year out. I was doing open houses on properties that had been around 8 months, 9, 10, a year, 14 months. $100,000, $60,000 properties. I mean, there was just so much inventory. People weren't really out there buying.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Interest rates were just coming off of like the cusp of 9%, 8%, somewhere around there.
Compared to today.
Yeah, when we got to 7, we're like, oh my God, this is great.
It's time to buy.
6%, oh my God, this is even better. So it was a different time. But it's still a matter going out there and talking to people and explaining what this is. Because back then, today, a lot of agents don't appreciate the fact that they have a lot of tools at their disposal. They have the internet. In you guys' case, obviously, you guys work with me, and you've seen, the support that we have and everything else.
Yeah.
But a lot of the new agents don't really know what it was like back then and what it's like to be in a normal market, because this is not a normal market. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've ridden a wave of like 20 years, and we're still riding this ridiculous wave. All right. When this is going to normalize, who knows?
Yeah.
But it will. Eventually, something's going to happen, some trigger, and it's going to go back. Yeah. It went back for a little bit there, mid-2022, when the rates skyrocketed overnight, right? Yeah. Like every freaking month they were adjusting the rate, kicking it up.
Yeah.
And what happened? Pumped the brakes. Everybody was, their business went down the tubes. They didn't know what to do.
Came the whole,
Now it's back to the same, 2021, 2022 era.
Back to even multiple offers. Man.
Yeah, multiple offers in certain cases, so on and so on. Is it a little bit better? I think yes.
Yeah.
It's still a little bit better than the 2020, 2021, mid 2022.
Well, but if you put it back to those rates,
oh yeah,
it'll go right back.
It'll go right back, and you don't even need to have a pulse. Or maybe just a pulse in order to succeed in real estate at that point.
But at the end of the day, I haven't it's all relative, right? You consider yourself a baby. Compared to Matt, I consider myself a baby too, like an infant, right?
Yeah.
So it's all relative. So but it's all cyclical, right, Matt?
Absolutely. It's very cyclical.
Yeah, like
20, almost 23 years in this business, I can tell you.
Yeah.
The cycles come and go.
Yeah, it's all cycles.
They come and go. And that's
I tell Renee all the time that, because I haven't experienced a market where, business is everywhere. Right. I got my license as soon as that hot market was cool.
Right at the end.
Right at the end.
Yep.
So I didn't even get to see none of that.
I had my best month ever in real estate, and then I met Carlos.
Yeah. Which
Sorry,
is crazy.
Carlos.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carlos.
So, you know,
hey, but I tell him right now, man, this is where you got to grind. This is where everybody's leaving.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is where everybody's leaving.
And, you know, he tells me all the time, he's like, you know, words of encouragement. He's like, yo, just stick around and you'll see. Like, things are going to get better. Yeah. Like, you know, and you're going to see when it gets back to normal or it gets better, you'll see, like, you're going to be like, yo, why is it like this? It feels so easy,
easy
compared to what it is now. But, you know,
like the reality is, though, you still have to make it a point to inform the public, right? Inform folks of why it's important to be homeowners.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lucky enough to have, you know, 83 tenants across 15 properties. That's my retirement. Right? We don't have retirement in this gig, right? You got to make your own retirement. Yes, we don't have a 401k that's, you know, matched in this, that, the other. And so what better way than to invest in what you already know and what you can control? Stocks and all that, I can't control that. Yeah. I mean, case in point, look at Circuit City. When that thing closed, tons of people that I still know, lost. I mean, their entire
big pensions and stuff.
Their like entire that. 401ks and everything gone overnight, just like that.
So, a couple questions for your real estate portfolio. You said you have 83 tenants across 15 properties.
Yeah,
is that mostly? Do you have mostly like residential, or do you own commercial?
It's all residential at this moment. Okay. Will I move into the commercial space? Absolutely, I'm going to move into the commercial space as well. Everything just in its due time, because you guys already know this, the listeners don't, but you know, I started Argent Realty 2 weeks before the pandemic. Yeah. Right. So that was a hurdle in itself because, you know, when I told my wife that was the route we were going to take, and, you know, she was very supportive. She always has been. She's like, okay, great. 'Cause she worked in the business with me. Right. She's like, great. And I said, look, the one thing that I want to make sure you understand is I don't want any loans. I don't need to take out any loans from banks, this, that, the other. We're going to do this with our money. And so we did, right? And set it all up, spend all this money redoing the space, the whole nine, having at least 1 year of operating expenses saved up in an account, in the operating account, just in case. And then the pandemic,
in case some kind of virus takes over the world.
Yeah, right. And then we open up, and 2 weeks later we're watching CNN and this whole thing, and we're shutting down, and you know, and my wife's freaking out because it's like 6 a.m. We're watching CNN, and she's freaking out. And she's like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" And I'm sitting there cool as a cucumber. I'm looking at her. I'm like, "This is the best thing that could have happened to us." And she's like, "What?" She looks at me like I got like 5 crazy. Heads. Yeah, this guy's insane. Yeah. And so I looked at her. I said, "Look. 2 things." I said, 1, have I ever let you down? She's like, no. I said, 2, the reason this is the best thing that could have happened is because this is really going to test the metal for us, see what we're made of. If we can survive this as a new company, especially a brokerage that needs to go out there and recruit agents, okay, if we can survive this, we will be in business for a long, long time. And look at us now. I mean, 3.5 years in, and you know, we've got 3 locations. I'm looking for the 4th, and the idea is to get to 10 locations, right? So, and you know, it's by design. Yeah. It's by design. Yeah. You guys already know, because when you interviewed with me, I told you from the get-go. It's very transparent. It's on our website. Yeah. You know, we're minority owned and minority centric. Yeah. And that's what I want the message to be out there. I want Argent to be the most well-known and respected minority-owned and minority-centric brokerage in the DMV.
Hell yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, you know, and here we are.
And I believe we can do that.
Yeah, of course, man.
We'll get there.
So like you said, when we interviewed, so that was one of the things, and I know we're kind of all over the place, Matt. So to get you back to like kind of cap off the origin story, right? When I interviewed, man, so I've been in real estate now for about 8 years, right? 7, 8 years. And one thing that I've seen in real estate is that, you know, everyone, since it's commission based, right? Everyone looks out for number one, which makes perfect sense to me, right? And, you know, there's good people in our business, right? Great people in our business, but I would, you know, especially when you're first learning, right? I wouldn't say loyalty is the big, you know, I guess, or the big factor to everyone, or how everyone looks at the business, right? So one of the things that I got taken back with when I, when I went to interview with Matt, our Argent, is if you look at the people around Matt, everyone will tell you, hey, I've been with Matt for 10 years. I've been with Matt for 20 years, 15 years. And I sat back, man, and I was like, wow, like that to me, that was the shocker. Like that was the closer, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything Matt said. It wasn't the $250,000
Man,
Porsche.
I wasn't that good at recruiting.
No, you did a great job, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But sometimes it's not what you could sell me. You know what I mean? It's something that you have to see. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. So when I saw the people around them, I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like that's what I want, in business and in real estate, to build something where I can look 20 years back, and say, Carlitos, we did it. You know what I mean? Like him and Juan always kid around and stuff like that. So to me, that's amazing, right? So I say that to say this. So the people around you now, that's kind of like, your team that's been following you,
for years,
since the retail days at Circuit City. Some of these people, right?
Yeah, Juan, Gio, retail days.
What's the secret, Matt?
The secret to keeping people around you?
In real estate, especially.
And in general.
Well, look.
Let me get my pen and paper real quick. I ain't got no friends.
Exactly.
It's really not any type of secret sauce. What it is it's really simple, right? And it's one, caring about folks, not having that arrogance where you're better than they are, helping them and making sure that they succeed when you succeed. Yeah. That's what's important. My dad always said, hey, when I'm dead and gone and buried, I want people to come to my funeral and not have anything bad to say. All right. That was a good dude. That's and that's how
good way to live.
Yeah, that's how my dad lived his life, and he helped a lot of people, and so I'm the same way.
Just comes from his upbringing.
It's the upbringing, but also having to go through the struggles and everything else, and you appreciate the little things that you have, right? And then the bigger successes as well. But you just can't forget about
because people have helped you out throughout.
That's right.
Your journey.
That's right. You can't forget about folks. So that's what's important. If you know your folks, you know their story, and you're just honest and straight, and don't do bad business and treat people the right way. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Take care of them.
Yeah.
They're going to stay with you.
That's good.
Interesting.
Yep. The most managers fail, and I've seen this happen many, many times, because they get in their own way, and they don't go out of their way to really know their folks. Know your folks and know their story, and be cognizant that they're the reason that you're putting food on your plate.
Yeah, facts, man.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah, right. Once you start, and I tell you, people look out for number. Hey, look, you start making money in this business.
That's how it is.
It comes fast too. Like, you know what I mean? It comes fast. And I'm telling you, most people in this business, they look out for number one. You know what I mean? That's what I expect from folks, you know what I mean? But there's other people like Matt that show you, things can be done differently too.
Yeah, and that stretches not just in the people that are in your circle where, these are coworkers or they work for you or whatever the case may be, but it also needs to stretch out to your clientele. And the important piece there is, you guys already know this because I've built my business on our minority communities, okay? And my biggest drive for that was thinking about my mom, my dad, and their struggles, and the fact that Dad never pulled the trigger on a house, and I lost my dad right before my 24th birthday. I lost him 10 days before my 24th birthday.
You were young, man.
So it was important to me to land that message for others, okay? And so it's always been, not just I have a client, it's I have someone that I can truly, truly impact their lives with helping them not only buy a house, but teaching them the route of, this new word that you hear out there, generational wealth. Okay. But this is what we were doing 23 years ago. And not everyone obviously is going to listen, but if you tell everyone and you treat everyone the same and you give them the same spiel, eventually someone's going to listen, right? And so I have clients that have listened, and they've got 6, 7, 8, 10 properties,
Yeah, that's amazing.
These are guys
You've
working.
made millionaires, man. That's amazing, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
these are folks that are working construction, making 30, 40 grand a year, you know, but they've listened and they've had the patience. And I've told them, look, just stick with me and I will turn you into a millionaire. Yeah. It's just going to take time. It's longevity. But would you trust me? You're going to be laughing all the way to the bank when you're 65 years old and retired.
Yeah, because those people that work, like, you know, especially construction jobs, like I tell my older brother this too, because he owns his own carpentry company. Like, you know, he's doing his thing right now. He works hard. I see that man get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning every day. You know, he has 4 kids. Yeah. And he's like, you know, he's been doing this for a long time. And I've seen him. He's got a partner. You know, they've been like Matt and Juan, like, you know, through dirt and all that. They started the company together, successful. They're doing good. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, I share the things that I've learned through Matt and just, you know, on my own about real estate. I'm like, look, you got to keep investing in real estate. Yeah. Because, you know, I know that you're going to, and I know this has crossed your mind, you're going to get to a point where you're going to think, he already says, bro, I'm tired. I go to work for my kids. I go to work because I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was up to me, I wouldn't, you know, but I know that I got responsibility. And I'm like, look, and I understand you. And I'm like, real estate is the way, though. You got to keep investing because you're going to get to a point where, you know, you're not going to want to work no more, or you're not going to be able to work no more. You know, God willing, nothing bad happens to you. But if something does, like, he's the one that's holding up the whole household. I'm like, you know, so it's something that, you know, for me, I put it on myself too. Yeah. Like, you know, and I've shared to you, I'm like, what real estate, what this business means to me. Like, I want to be that help for my family. Yeah. Because my family, there's nobody really that really is doing something huge. Yeah. Like, you know, and I want to be able to, like, kind of help them through that.
God willing, bro.
Yeah, God man. And that's why I real estate for me is everything, bro. Yeah. I see the opportunities to build something. Yeah. But like Matt said,
if a kid like me from Langley Park can do it, trust me, you can do it too. Yeah. You know, the difference here is you have support, you have mentorship, you know, like Renee, myself, Juan, and everybody else to help you get there faster. Yeah. But it is important that, you know, our listeners, our clients, our customers, that they understand and they get the knowledge. And we have to be the ones that take the ownership of that and give them the knowledge and teach them and show them so that they can, you know, they can grow in this country too.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Matt. So you basically, you know, you put your team together through the years, and then you moved into the actual residential real estate space yourself. Mm-hmm. I remember I probably caught you at the tail end, man. When I was coming in, you were kind of exiting because when I got my license in 2015, I want to say. And I didn't really start doing real estate till 2017, right? But I remember when I got my license, the guy I was being trained by was like a short sales guy, like, you know, like a short sales guru, because at that time,
short sales,
that's what it was, right? In that market. And I remember one of the guys you would see with all the REOs and all the short Escobar. It was Escobar, and like three other people that basically just dominated the listings when it came to REOs and you know, short sales. Yeah, and he was one of them. I didn't know. He was just, to me, he was just a guy on paper. I would always say Escobar.
But here's what's funny, right? He remembers that. He doesn't remember the other ones, and I know who the other ones are, and they've been around in the business longer than I have. Yeah. But you remembered that. Why? Costa. You remembered it because one, it was a Latino.
He was a Latino, yeah.
And you're like, hey, mira este.
Y no me daban las casas, man. No me daban las casas.
And then, and the other thing, let's be honest, Escobar. I mean, come on. I'm not Colombian, but, you know, it carries a little bit of, you know, panache to it, right? Just because of we all know why.
They say it holds its weight.
That's right. I was like, is this guy part of the family, or what's going on?
And then the slick hair back doesn't help either. Yeah, when you finally meet him.
That's right.
Yeah, man. But I remember that. So it's like, you know, so you did that. You did your thing. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I built a team. So I started building my team early on. You guys know a little bit about that backstory. So I brought Juan on 6 months after I got into the business. Mm-hmm. I started building my team out. Eventually, it was 12 of us on the team. And this is way in the infancy of teams. You know, teams were not really heard of back then. And then I ended up getting into the REO space. And I got into the REO space, not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but we saw the writing on the wall, okay, because we were in the trenches. Remember when I told you management really fails a lot to see things that are happening. That's because they don't care enough to learn from the people in the trenches. Okay, if Circuit City had just sat back a little bit and said, you know what, let's take a really good look at our business, and from an outsider perspective looking in, right? And just hired a consulting company to come in there and tell them what the hell was wrong with their business. Consulting company does exactly what I'm telling you guys. They go in and they talk to the people in the trenches and they say, okay, what's going on? And they develop a great line of questioning so they can get to the root cause, right? And then they tell them, look, here's what's wrong. Then it's up to management to figure out if they're going to go that route or not. But that happens all the time. And with me, it was one of those sense of, all right, I can see the writing on the wall, because when we're in the trenches and we're on the other side of the equation, meaning on the listing side, we would see the poor lady that's buying that $500,000, $600,000 house in Rockville that only made 20, 30 grand cleaning houses. All right. And lenders taking advantage of it, and realtors too. Let's be honest, course, right? Realtors taking advantage of it also. And, pick your payment loan. Pick your payment loan. You had three options. Hey, you want to pay $4,000, $2,000, or $1,000, right? Oh yeah, I'll take the $1,000, and nobody ever explaining to them that it was negative amortization. Okay.
That happened to my parents. That's how they lost their house.
I hear you.
Yeah, and then you've got things like arms and things. Nobody was explaining this stuff to them, and if they were explaining it, they were very vaguely explaining it, and then just saying, "Don't worry about it. We'll refinance it."
You got it.
Okay. Like if I'm a genie in the bottle and I know what the hell's going to happen in 5 years from now. I did a training over at the old brokerage where I was, and it was essentially on these types of programs. This is before the market turned and crashed in 2008. This is, I think, 2006. I had already gotten into the REO business, or door, I should say, in 2007, just so you know. So it took me 3 years, because I started knocking on that door in 2004. And the people that were there, the old guard, man, it was tough to get in. It was really tough. They didn't want anybody in there because they.
I don't even know how you got in. How you got into
What is
there,
the
man?
process? What is the difference? Because I don't know anything about REOs. So what is the process of?
Well, the process is
like a whole different episode.
Yeah, that's a whole different episode. We can go into all kinds of stuff, but just think of it like this. They didn't want no new kid on the block coming in there and taking business from them, right? It was a good old boy system, and they had the people they knew and blah blah blah, and so on. That was it. It was a tough nut to crack, but it took me until 2007 to crack it, and I got in, and then in 2008, the proverbial shit hits the fan, and that was it. But the reason I got in was because I would see that stuff, and I talked to the team in 2004, and I said, you know what, guys, this is heading for something bad. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be bad. So I said, the next wave here, if we're going to ride and weather the storm, is going to be REOs, foreclosed properties. So I'm going to start knocking on that door. You guys keep doing what you're doing, keep selling, blah, blah. I'm going to pursue this so that we have an entrance into that new market. And so it took me 3 years, and I finally got in. And then in 2008, boom. It was like I got in late 2007. Okay. And then January of 2008, I get my first REO listing. And then I sell that one, and then they dump 50 of them in our lap. Like, here, get rid of all these.
Oh, you can sell these? Here's 50 more. Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, it was great. I mean, we rode that from 2008 till about 2018, when the inventory was really dried up. Okay, so 10 years of that. But it was interesting. It was, I sold a lot of property. I was the king of Baltimore at one point because Freddie Mac called me up. I was already with, a bunch of other REO bunch of banks. I was with Bank of America. I was with Countrywide. I was with a whole slew of others. And so Freddie Mac calls me. The lady called me, actually, and says, hey, your name came across my desk, and 5 Star is coming up in 2 days. 5 Star is an event that they do down in Texas for REO. Okay, and it was coming up in 2 days. And she says, we really love to interview you, we're going to be doing the interview here at 5 Star. You know, are you interested in the Baltimore market? And but she also, before that, she said, you know, no one is putting up their hand to take it. So this is why we're going through this interview process and we've put it out there, whatever. I said, okay, sure, no problem. So I had to pay like $2,000, get on a plane, go down there. And I'm sitting here going, this is it's mine. It's done, right? I have no problem spending $2,000 to get on a plane. I get there. And the interview was that day. There's 130 other people interviewing for this thing.
What?
Okay. And I was dead last because I was the last one that they reached out to me. Not, you know, I didn't input it into the thing because that's how they do it.
You didn't apply for it.
I didn't apply. And so, you know, the last person, I go through the interview and lady's like, you got it. You know, this is why I wanted you here because
what?
You know, your experience and everything else and what you've done, and you're the one we want. And so, and that's what happened. And so I got a big contract with them. That was at least you were guaranteed at least 100 properties a year with that contract. And we did more than that. And then of course I had the other ones. I had Fannie Mae. I had Bank of America.
That was just with that one bank or whatnot.
That was just with Freddie Mac Direct. Yeah.
Wow, man.
So we did that.
I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you, right? Like right now, right? You know, you're not in it anymore. Well, at least I don't see your name pop up. Right now, it's like DaCosta.
He's one of the old guards.
Okay,
Penny Green is the other one. Yeah.
I'm telling you, like if you look for REOs, there'll be like there'll be a couple agents that just dominate that. You know what I mean? And Matt was one of them. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So I never, and I never put those together. Yeah, I never put those together until he told me, and I was like, oh. You're that Escobar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, man. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so, a lot of people know that name because of that era, that 10 years that I spent in REO. I mean, they would see our signs, my signs everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
I remember.
So, you know, there's a lot of people to this day. I'll go to functions and stuff, and they'll you're Matt Escobar. Yeah. And like, we did business one time, like, sure, with thousands of others too. But, you know, it was cool. It was a learning experience, that's for sure. That's for sure, because it was a totally different business.
Yeah.
Totally different business. That's another episode in itself.
I got you.
Yeah. It really is.
So in that order, right? So you get to a point now where you're like, hey, I know what I'm doing. You know, obviously you're in talks with asset managers and stuff, and you're like, hey, you know, I gotta put my own place together, open up my own shop. I mean, what was the thought process for Argent?
What was the driving force behind Argent?
Yeah.
Well, it was something, you get to a point where you want another challenge. At least I'm that type of individual.
Okay.
Right. I've been there. I've done it. I did real estate extremely successfully. You know, I replaced my income that I had from Best Buy, my last retail job, my first year in real estate. That was a hard pill to swallow because I was making good money. I was making, by the time I put in, you know, I counted my stocks because I got stocks as a manager over there with Best Buy. I was at $130,000 a year. Okay. You know, money. So for late 1999, 2000, I mean, that's pretty damn good money, especially for a kid that was, you know, 24 years old and didn't have a degree. So it was a hard thing to walk away from, but I replaced it that first year. And then my second, and I say first year, first full year, so probably going into my second year. And then it just started snowballing because, you know, I built a team knowing that I was going to make this super successful, right? And I understood volume. That's what I understood from my retail days. So I knew how to put a team there. I knew that I could not do everything myself. Mm-hmm. And that's why I needed help and I needed a team behind me. Because after I spent my first few deals, I just wrote down literally how long it took me to do, how much time I invested in each transaction. And I knew that if I was helping 5 buyers a month, I was tapped out. I was tapped out. I couldn't do any more than that. You know, if I did, I was going to lose my mind, right? Funny story there too, which I did, and you guys kind of know this little story with Geo and, you know, putting out a a bet. And,
I remember.
There was 3 months in a row where I did 10 deals a month, and I will never do that again because, it was all buyer deals and it drove me bananas.
That's
right?
crazy, man.
But,
and you guys were doing it with less tech too. That's what always impresses me.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Faxes.
Yeah, you can wait. No e-sign.
No
you didn't have
e-sign.
No e-sign. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
If we had the tech that we had today, we easily would have done triple the amount.
Yeah,
of volume.
yeah. That's what amazes me all the time
Yeah.
when you tell when you tell me stories, and I'm even to show houses, like you guys didn't have Bluetooth Sentry locks.
Nope.
You know, you know what I mean.
We didn't have that.
Like you just opened with an app. You just touched it to the app.
No.
They didn't have all that.
had
You
one.
had to go literally get the keys at the broker's office that was holding you.
That's insane.
Carlos, you know how now your client says, "Hey, what about this one that I just saw?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you're able to pull it up on your phone
Immediately.
and look at it. No, puppy, that didn't work like that.
That's crazy.
You know who Siri was for me? Juan Siri. Juan Siri. Hey, look up this property for me.
And shout out to Juancito, man. Look, we even talked about it. We had a whole conversation. We were like,
Yeah, we did.
Hey, should we have the dynamic duel together? And they were like, nah. In the movies, first you get to see Batman, and then you meet Robin,
you
right?
meet
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, shout out to Juancito though. We definitely want to have both of you come back.
Yeah, part 2 is gonna be with the dynamic duo.
That's for sure. So that in a nutshell, that's how it was. It was tough. It wasn't as easy as it is now.
Yeah.
You've got GPS. We had ADC maps.
Oh, man.
And for every county. So in my trunk, I had every single county there that I worked in. Anne Arundel,
That's wild to me.
Prince George's County, Montgomery County. This is ADC maps. That's how we got
That's
around.
wild to me, man.
When the first GPS came out, and it was like, I think I bought the Magellan.
Okay.
Remember that? It was like $1,000. That was a game changer. That was a game changer. That was a big deal.
That's crazy to me.
No, I'm trying to tell you, dude. Like when I hear the old stories, I'm just like, because I'm like, that's great, right?
I don't think I would have been in real estate.
Carlos, I had flip phones for the first few years of real estate.
The technology.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But that's what's up, man. So fast forward 2023, we got Argent. Argent's up to how many agents are you guys up to now?
We've got a little over 100 agents, I think.
Beautiful, man. That's amazing. And then that's the cool thing about at Argent at the shop. It's not like they just taking anybody. You know what I mean? Like if that was the goal, I'm sure they'd be well over 1,000 agents by now.
Oh yeah.
Super selective, has a plan for every office and stuff. Man,
the training and the information, I can vouch for this that you get at Argent is like none other.
Yeah.
And it feels personable to me.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we have this type of access to our broker. And you're able to have conversations with them. That bro. I didn't experience a lot of brokerages.
Yeah.
I was with one briefly.
Yeah.
Before I came to Argent, but like I've said before, it's like I didn't even meet the broker.
Right.
I never got to have a conversation with him. I tried to email him. I tried to call him because, I was having problems with like still transferring and all these things. And, you got to talk to the broker. You got to get access from the broker. You got to get the broker to sign this. And I was like, okay, how do I reach out to them? Here's his phone number. Here's the email. Okay, cool. Called him. Didn't pick up. Called him multiple times. Didn't pick up. Emailed them, which, I'm pretty sure, busy person, but like Matt's a busy person too. Like, and the fact that, if I need to get a hold of him, he's there, and if I'm not able to get a hold of him, I got Juan. But like in the training too, like, and the things that he tells us in the training that you provide, like, in-depth training, I'm like, I don't think other brokerages do this.
No, the reality is most of them don't. And, but it's a passion for us, and it goes hand in hand with what we're trying to build, right? We're trying to build, a very well-respected minority owned company that is minority centric. But at the same time, we believe in teaching our communities, teaching our folks, our clients, the value of having home ownership, right? And so that same belief system goes into our training for you guys. We want you guys to be the total expert in it, because you need to go out there and practice what you preach, and you need to, invest yourselves, and you need to make sure that when you're 65 years old, you're still not working in real estate. Even though you may be, I don't know. But the reality is you want your clients to have that. You want you want to have it as well. And so we press upon you guys. You've heard me say it. When you guys are ready to invest, come and talk to me.
Yeah.
There was a training we had for, what was it?
It was supposed to be today.
Today. That, I canceled because my little one's been sick, so I had to stay with him yesterday, and he's had a fever for a couple days and so on and so on. But also, I think it was kind of put together a little bit too rushed, and we didn't get the info out in time, because we want to do something for you guys on the investment side. Okay. Learning how to invest, where you guys will have myself up there. I'll bring in, one of my business partners on the development side, Mike. So you guys can do a Q&A and just, for 2.5 hours, ask us anything and everything you want.
70% rule?
And what? 70% ARV, blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of baloney, people.
Nah. We appreciate all that stuff, man. And that's, aside from like when I said what attracted me to Argent was, like the family atmosphere, the team that Matt has and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just his philosophy, man. It's not like, and if I really put it all together, I think I've been at maybe 7 different shops, something like that. So, and I've only been in real estate like 7 years. So that average is like 1 a year. Because there's been years that I go there, you're promised certain things or you're told certain things by brokers,
and you
right?
end up not liking it, and you move on.
And then, or you just don't like the way they do business, man, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm out. You know what I mean? So what I was trying to say is Matt is maybe the only or one of the few, I can't think of someone else that comes from it comes at it from not like a salesy, you know what I mean? Like because I've been at places, bro, where they got it down to a science. Like they're like, hey, these are the different personalities you're gonna meet, learn how these people are gonna, act, then you mirror their language, like their body language, like, I'm talking about, corporate level stuff in sales, right?
Yeah,
You've been there too, right? And what I appreciate about Matt, it's more like, hey, it's not just, because of the backyard, right? It's not just because, you love the kitchen, right? No, understand that in America, like this is the investment. Like,
That's right.
Real estate is the tool, right? That can get you where you want to be. You want to be a millionaire? You can do it through real estate. Let me show you how. Yeah. Right. And I love that, man. And I was like, whoa, I was taken back by it because no one does that, man. No one tells people, hey, let's sit down and really break down all the numbers. Let me show you all the behind the scenes, all the cost and where all the money's going, right? Nobody really does that. In real estate, most people, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, they're just going to take you for the ride.
That's it.
You're just coming along for the ride, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where I think a lot of people say, well, I didn't expect that to happen, or I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, no one sat down and took the time to actually explain the investment you're about to make. Yeah. You know what I mean? So Matt, I think, does an excellent job and trains all the agents and, to see it this way, to be direct with people and tell them, hey, look, this is an investment. Like, don't walk away because, you can't find another $80 a month or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because it's not just where you're going to lay your head or whatever, you know what I mean? This is like a vehicle to, like I said, reach your goals, man, and do great things for your family. So, yeah, man. So, shout outs to you, bro. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And just to what you said, I'll piggyback on that because it happened this morning.
Okay.
Before coming to this podcast, one of our agents walked into the office. Juan is with his mom at doctor appointment. Okay. So I'm in the office and, he comes in looking for Juan and I'm like, he's not here. What's up? What's going on? He's like, well, I really need somebody to talk to my client because I can't get through to him and he's not understanding, And I said, all right, give me the backstory. What's going on? So I'll make this short for you guys. The agent is friends with the client. Okay. So that already imposes some problems because you're trying to help a friend. Yeah. Family and friends, it's really tough for them to listen to you a lot of times, right? So they're friends. He is a property manager, so he has a real estate license, but he doesn't practice selling real estate or, helping people buy. He practices management. That's what he does. He's a property manager. That's another layer of issues right there because, he's sitting there going, I've got more experience in this business than you do to my agent, who's been an agent for about 4 years. And so the story was he's got a neighbor and my agent's he's got him, pre-qualified the whole nine. They've put offers in 3 times, lost. Okay. He has a neighbor that is looking to move. They already bought a house. It's like their retirement home in Delaware. And they want to sell their townhouse. My agent's friend wants to stay in that neighborhood if at all possible. So this is a win-win.
Beautiful situation.
Fell on his lap.
He's known the neighbors for like 7 years. They're not right next door, but they live a few doors down. Known them for 7 years. They get along really well, and so on, right? And so the problem here was he wasn't seeing why it was imperative for him to close as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Because the sellers mentioned to him, we want to leave in September.
Okay.
So we want this closing to happen in September. Okay. Whereas Elijah was pressing upon him, look, you want to get this done now because monetarily it's going to impact you most likely in a negative way. We don't know what the rates are going to be like in September. You've got a rate lock. If you lock it in right now for 45 days, if you want to lock it in for longer than that, you're going to have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And he's explaining these things to him. He just, he was kind of like blinders on and saying, no, this is how we're going to do it, so on and so forth. And he just, I got on the phone with him this morning and I spoke to the guy, and, I laid it out in that fashion. And I said, look, okay, what are the terms of the contract? What's the price and everything else? And he's like, well, they're actually giving me a sweet deal, and they know they are. I'm not taking advantage of them because, as a property manager and a licensee, he did the right thing because they told him a price of $350,000. They could easily sell the house for $400,000.
Oh, wow.
It's a townhouse in Laurel. Okay. And they're not all about the money. They're like, we're doing this to help you out, and he's got a young family and that kind of thing. And they're like, I guess they've got money. Yeah. So the $50,000 is not a big deal. They're like, we're going to give this to you. We're going to do this. Right. And so, I explained it to him in those terms, and I said, look, you have a potential here for not just getting your house. This is going to be your first stepping stone, your investment property. And you're about to possibly let go of $50,000. And I said, because things can happen. Their tune might change, not because of them, but it could be somebody else. It could be life, anything, Murphy's Law, right? So you want to get this locked down right now. You're worried about them moving out in September? No problem. Look, you do the deal now, you lock it in right now, you do a 45-day settlement. That puts you out to the middle of next month, right? Then you've only got 1 month because they want to leave in September 15th, right? Yeah. Just do a rent back, and you can do it one of two ways: either charge them for it or give it to them for free.
Free, yes, yes.
And you won't have a payment until this. And then he started. It's like, oh my God. Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I said, you're about to put in jeopardy, the biggest investment that you're going to make, but more importantly, the nice little windfall that they are giving you. Yeah. They're just putting it in your
That's
lap.
a blessing, bro.
Not anybody will do that, bro.
No, not many people out there would. Yeah. And so, he got it after that. And he's like, no, you're absolutely right. So he's going to go talk to them, explain why he needs to get this thing under contract now, and because of the rates and everything else, and get it done. And it's because of that, because people really don't think about their property as an investment, as an asset. Because you will go online and you're going to hear a lot of naysayers saying things like, well, the property that you live in, that's not a positive investment for you. It's a liability.
Yeah, it's a liability. You're paying for it. You don't own it. The bank owns it.
And they probably listen to Dave Ramsey.
But the reality is, let's think about this for a second. Yeah. And to an extent, I do agree. Sure, it's a liability because you are paying for it, just like you're paying for your car.
Our man Grant Cardone says that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a guy that I follow. I don't know if you've heard.
I know who.
I think he says that a lot. And I understand what he's saying. Like if your purpose is to just invest, I see what he's saying, right? But if your purpose is you need a home for your family and make an investment at the same time,
and that's what we're getting at.
Man.
Let's be honest. If this table right here, if all this stuff, all three of them, right, is the USA, right? This is the country. You guys tell me what percentage, and show me, all right, with your hands, what percentage of this United States are folks that are going to be able to afford more than just their house where they live in? Meaning go out there and buy multiple properties time and time again.
Not very, very low percentage.
Very low percentage, very right? Low, yeah. The majority of them are going out there and they're buying the house that they live in, which eventually becomes the biggest asset that they own.
Correct.
So how is that not an investment? How is that not a positive investment? Okay. For them.
Yeah.
It's a huge positive investment. Yeah. I've known plenty of folks that, the parents or grandparents, whatever, passed away.
Yeah.
And the inheritance, the biggest part of the inheritance is always the house. Always the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or folks that have used the house so that they can live out their golden years. They've sold it. They've downsized. They take that $400,000-$500,000, and now that completes the money that they needed to live out the rest of their days.
Yep.
Okay.
Start a business. Send kids to school.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities there for you. So again,
It gives you leverage.
It's the mindset that people have. And sure, again, yeah, I agree, like you said, to a certain extent, it's a liability for certain individuals if you're looking just to invest. But for the regular homeowner that's going in there and buying their house with the purpose of living in it, 9 times out of 10, that's the biggest asset they have.
Matt said something very powerful to me. And, we probably got to wrap it up. I'm sure you got to go soon.
I love this. This is great. It's keeping me out of the office.
An excuse. Hey, I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Matt said something to me where, and this is, man, it's a fine. It's like, how can I put it? It's just a small point, but it's so true, right? Owning a home forces you to save.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a forced bank account when you pay that mortgage. You know what I mean? But people don't look at it that way, right? They look at it like, oh, I got to pay the bank. Well, you got to pay the bank a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You got to pay them back a little bit. But honestly, what you're doing is you're paying down this loan on something that's worth X. You know what I mean? But yeah, so in that sense, people don't see it. How can I put it? Sometimes people that have been renting their whole life, they see that it's going to be the same thing there. I'm just paying a bank now, and then the money's going out the window.
Yeah. Right.
But they don't see it. No, that's all going back to you. Like, it's like Matt says, it's literally forcing you to save money.
Yeah. Yearly, you're saving money. You're paying that principal down. You're getting equity built into
the other half of that is because they don't know that is because they might not have an agent that explains those things to them. Because what I'm thinking is who else is going to come and explain what their mortgage payment is going to? Or or how it's a force.
Matt
forces.
Here's the funny thing: not only realtors don't explain, even the loan officers don't explain.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's Matt and the People's Podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
That's the only way you're gonna get a mortgage breakdown.
You're hearing more and more because now they're throwing around the the generational wealth term. You're hearing it more and more and more. But the reality is there's still a ton, probably a grand majority. I'm gonna guesstimate that. I'm gonna throw it out there and say 95% of agents that aren't sitting down and doing that with their client. They're really not. Probably because they don't understand it themselves.
Yeah, well,
okay, they don't understand it. Brokers don't teach that. They don't know. And in our set, for me, I became a developer in 2004. So in 2004, I started doing a little bit of development work, and then it grew a little bit more and more and more. And then I met my business partner, Mike, a few years later, and it just grew from there, right? But I learned a lot. I learned a lot through him. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, Mike was self-made and multi-millionaire. He's a great guy. He's like a pseudo dad for me because he's 76. But anyway, what I tell folks is I thought I knew business. Because there I am, hot, young hot shot, and I'm making really great money and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. I made my first $1 million in this business when I was 28 years old, my first $1 million. So 3 years after I got into it. In 1 year, commissions mainly, right? And with Mike, what I tell folks is I got an Ivy League education in business and finance for free just by being around him, okay, and learning from him. And I really thought I knew business. I learned how the other side thinks and lives and looks at their investments and their assets. And when I say the other side, I don't mean people that have a couple $1 million. I mean people that have, 100 million plus.
Extraordinary wealth, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Because there's 5 of them that are best buddies. And like he says, I'm the pauper of the group. Okay. He's the poor guy of the group. So, it's a different mentality. It's a very, 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 selective mentality when it comes to their assets, their business, and how they go about selecting and doing things and how they look at money.
Pero definitivamente en la comunidad latina eso tiene que ir cambiando, brother. Eso, la mentalidad de qué es lo que es una propiedad, la inversión, qué significa eso para el futuro de uno, ¿me entiende? Aquí en este país tiene que ir cambiando, porque el otro día vi una estadística que dice que menos de mitad de los latinos en este país son dueños de su propia propiedad.
Sí.
¿Me entiendes? That's bad, bro. Like, we need to up those numbers.
Pero no solo es esa mentalidad que tiene que cambiar. Ahí tenemos un par de cosas que tienen que cambiar. Y lo más importante, bueno, hay dos para mí, como latino, como salvadoreño, en este país, creciendo aquí desde los 70, viendo cómo han cambiado las cosas para nosotros, ¿verdad? Como latinos. Lo importante para nosotros es, bueno, un par de cosas, como les digo. Número uno, sabiendo lo que es, obviamente, entender lo que es la inversión de propiedad, tener su propiedad, posiblemente tener más de una. Y ese es lo ideal, ¿verdad? No tienes que tener 15, 20, 30 propiedades si no quieres, ¿ok? Pero con 5 o 6, te apuesto 1000 veces que te vas a retirar bien como millonario. Comparado como tu 401k o la plata que vas a ahorrar.
O lo que uno va a ahorrar.
O el social. Porque mucha gente se está guiando por el social security. Ahí no vas a tener nada.
Pero me van a dar 1,500 al mes.
Sí, 1,500. Pero ahorita no puedes ni ir a... Dime dónde vas a ir a rentar un apartamento más o menos por $1,500.
Va a costar.
No va a suceder. Entonces lo importante es entender el proceso, entender por qué es importante tener propiedad, por lo menos una, quizás 2 o 3, y tener algo que uno le puede dejar a sus hijos, ¿verdad?
There we go.
Y encima de eso, lo más todavía importante es la mentalidad que traemos nosotros de latinos de allá. Que nosotros queremos ya, vienen acá, tienen su trabajito, están haciendo un poquito de plata, y ahora quiero mi carrazo. Quiero mi Tundra, donde yo le pago $1,200
a la Toyota.
Correcto, por esa vaina. O me voy y me compro un BMW. Cuando me conociste, yo creo que todavía tenía el Jeep, ¿no? No tenía el
Jeep.
Sí.
When I first met you,
¿Qué andaba yo? Yo andaba un Jeep del 2012, casi 10 años anduve esa vaina, de 2 puertas. Okay. Cuando yo conocí a Mike, y este hombre, que tiene como $100 millones, yo lo conocí a él a través de otro amigo que necesitaba ayuda con una propiedad. Y le ayudé, y Mike era el socio en esa propiedad.
Quedaste bien entonces.
Quedé muy bien, obviamente, pero no fue, yo casi ni hablé con Mike, si le dije 2 palabras durante ese proceso, pero él poniendo atención y viendo cómo yo hacía el negocio y cómo yo trataba a mi amigo mío, right? Jeremy. Y a los 6 meses me llama y me dice, me gustó todo eso que hiciste por nosotros. Quiero hacer negocio contigo.
You never know who's watching. Okay. You never know who's watching.
Quiero hacer negocio contigo.
That's amazing.
Entonces así sucedió. Pero de todos modos, a ese hombre yo lo conocí y él manejaba un Jeep del 93. Que hasta se le estaba cayendo la barra de arriba. Okay, estaba toda porque le había caído como una rama de un árbol. Y ahí lo andaba. Todo feo y lo otro.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Me dio tanta pena con él que un día ya después de que nos hicimos buenos amigos, quizás unos 2 años después. Y digo buenos amigos porque él tiene 2 hijos. Uno tiene mi edad, y el otro más joven, un poquito más joven. Pero Mike habló conmigo esta mañana. Él me llama a mí más que sus hijos. Okay. Pero así somos de unidos, ¿no? So, me dio tanta pena que yo le dije a su esposa, mira, inventate algo, una excusa. Yo voy a venir a recoger el Jeep, me lo voy a llevar y yo le voy a hacer unos arreglos porque
no puede estar así.
It looks terrible. Los seatbelts no trabajaban.
Wow.
Okay? They wouldn't click.
But that's the power of knowing that it's by choice.
It's by choice.
Because he can easily go and get the best off the lot.
There's power in that. That's what
get whatever the hell he wants.
It's beautiful, man.
He go pick
I think
out
that's
a
so
Lamborghini.
beautiful, bro.
That's
There's power in that, bro.
But, I mean, what does he spend his money on?
Investment, property.
Real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Assets.
Real estate. Ahí, mira, ahí es donde ese hombre gasta su plata. La casa donde él vive, ahí en D.C., era una embajada y él la hizo su propia casa.
What?
Y tiene 7,000 pies cuadrados ahí
En DC.
en D.C., Mass Avenue.
So he owns an old
embassy
building.
I mean, just imagine right now owning 7,000 square feet in DC.
Oh, that's multi-million-dollar property.
Esa casa vale quizás como $7 millones.
Yeah, bro.
Ya. Entonces,
Ask him if we could do a house tour.
ahorita está en California porque él tiene una casa en Laguna Beach.
No, yeah,
Okay. Y eso al ras del cerro ahí, de la montaña, viendo el mar. Okay. Esa casa le vale quizás como $4 millones.
Yeah. No, digamos que está bien parado el tipo, digamos.
Ah.
Pero ¿cómo llegó ahí? Me imagino que real estate.
Sacrificándose.
Yeah, pero me imagino que el vehículo
la familia de él no
venía de
billete,
dinero.
No era de billete. Él hizo su billete y comenzó en retail.
Yeah, sales, huh?
En retail. Él tenía una cadena de ropa de mujeres.
Wow.
Pero ropa profesional para mujeres
Okay.
a descuentos, pero grandes descuentos, ¿no? Él tenía una tienda en Langley Park. Y mi mamá compraba ropa ahí. Yo me acuerdo de esa tienda porque me llevaba a esa tienda. So, cuando él me dijo, la historia de él, yo le digo, God.
You connected the dots.
Sassafras. Le digo, ahí en Langley Park. He's like, oh my God, yeah, I had a store.
That's crazy.
Small world, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Small world.
Pero sí, Matt, como te digo, entonces, tú sabes, yo llevo mis años en esto, entonces, una de las cosas que una cosa que yo me río es cuando Matt se sienta con un cliente y le dice, lo vamos a hacer millonario. Y el cliente, se ríe, right? Like, And then you start,
explicar.
Le comienza a explicar, ok, mire, vamos a agarrar la primera tiene que agarrarla así para que la segunda no va a tener que dar 20%, la podemos conseguir con menos y así vamos a ir, pero esto es un plan y ya cambia la actitud. Because it's real. Now yeah, I could do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, pero comienzan riéndose, ¿me entiendes?
Yeah, because you tell somebody, but then the difference is then you show them.
Yeah, then you show
That's when
them.
they can visualize it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I see.
Y no es para todos, no vamos a esconder las cosas, no es para todos.
No, no es para todos.
Pero si ellos ponen un poco de atención y hacen caso y siguen los consejos y hacen todo de la manera que tú le das la estrategia, ¿verdad?
Mm-hmm.
Claro, se hacen en 5 años, lo puedes hacer de 5 casas,
Yeah.
sin problema.
Yeah.
Sin problema y se hace fácil. Pero también no le estamos explicando a alguien algo que no puede, que ellos puedan decir, no, pero se puede caer el mercado, puede pasar esto, puede pasar cualquier cosa negativa.
Yeah.
Porque la realidad es que lo que estás haciendo es adquiriendo por propiedad para tener propiedad de alquiler,
Yeah.
¿verdad? Renta, ¿ya? Y ¿cuál es la única cosa que aquí en este país, y así como en todos, nunca se va a acabar? Es la necesidad de tener dónde vivir.
¿Dónde vivir, papá?
¿Okay?
Yeah.
Es posible. Mira, tú puedes pasar sin carro,
Yeah.
puedes pasar sin bastantes lujos.
Yeah. Hasta sin comida a veces.
Ajá, pero donde vivir necesitas ese techo, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Eso es necesidad y nunca se va a acabar.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
¿Y cuántas veces has oído ahí en la noticia que dicen, la renta está bajando?
Yeah, nunca, papá.
Nunca. La
It always
renta
goes
siempre,
up.
siempre sigue. ¿O cuántas veces has oído que dicen, vacancies en todos lados, que hay oportunidad para ir? No, porque no hay. Siempre hay alguien ahí que necesita alquilar.
Si ahorita el problema, la gente dice que los intereses. Mira, la verdad, el problema no, en mi opinión, no son, bueno, obvio eso detiene a la gente, ¿verdad? Pero el mayor problema es que no hay suficiente casas, papá.
No hay suficiente.
No hay suficiente casas a la venta, you know what I mean? So, eso como te digo, y más combinado con el latino, porque mira, mucha gente también, tú sabes, yo no entiendo a la gente porque como dijo Carlos earlier, si vienen de un país, digamos, Latinoamérica, y vienen acá y ya tienen su trabajito, su casita, es como que ya lograron algo, ¿verdad? Entonces yo lo entiendo. O tal vez esta era la meta de ellos, ¿verdad?
Correcto.
Entonces yo entiendo a veces esa mentalidad, pero lo que no entiendo a veces es cuando veo que esa primer casa les ha dado, pues, ¿me entiendes? Les ha producido y entonces, ¿y por qué no ir por una segunda? You know what I mean? ¿Por qué estancarse? ¿Por qué quedarse ahí?
Yeah.
Y tú también...
En veces es miedo.
Yeah.
En veces es miedo también. Pero más que nada tiene que ver con la información.
Yeah. Para mí falta la información.
Yeah.
Hay falta de información y no saber y no tener la persona que los va a guiar
Yeah.
correctamente.
Y por eso hicimos este podcast Y Matt fue uno de los que inspiró originalmente. Yo le dije, Matt, mira, tengo una... No, for real. I mean, that's fact. Yo le dije, Matt, mira, yo tengo una idea. I don't know if you remember. We were
más o menos.
Tengo una idea. Le digo, mira, tal vez me hago un podcast. Le digo, porque ahora yo veo que la gente así es que es más fácil para encontrarla a uno y la gente ya no... ¿cómo te puedo decir? Ya no es mucho anuncio, sino que la gente, on your own time, ¿verdad?
Sí.
You find your podcast, or you find your show that you like, o como sea, para uno informarse, ¿verdad? Entonces, por eso digo, porque así como tú tienes la meta de que Argent, ¿me entiendes? Aquí o en el país sea reconocido como, ¿me entiendes? Un buen brokerage de calidad para la gente, para las minorías, ¿verdad?
Sí, correcto.
Igual nosotros el podcast, ¿me entiendes? La idea es dar información a nuestra gente, a las minorías, ¿me entiendes? Para que aprendan, ¿me entiendes? De real estate, de bienes y raíces, y cómo pueden usar eso como una herramienta, ¿verdad? Para mejorar su situación y para
mejorar la situación y también cómo protegerse. Porque la realidad es que nadie habla de esto en cómo el público se puede proteger. Porque seamos honestos, hay buenos realtors y hay realtors malos, como cualquier otro negocio.
Sí. Mecánicos buenos, mecánicos malos, doctores buenos, doctores malos.
Exactamente. Entonces uno tiene que saber cómo protegerse y esa es una de las cosas que siempre les hemos brindado a los clientes, ¿verdad? Ellos tienen el poder de ir a buscar, ir a ver a quién les cae lo mejor de bien, pero no solo eso, a ver con quién cuadran, donde sí les explican, donde sí les dicen las cosas, donde sí les pueden tomar de la mano prácticamente y decirle, mira, así es como lo vamos a hacer. Pero la realidad es, si vas a estar en negocio por años, así como estamos nosotros o estoy yo, tienes que ser honesto y recto en tus cosas, ¿verdad? Y no puedes tomar ventaja. Eso es lo importante. Eso es lo importante.
Eso es lo que me da lástima a mí cuando veo que Pues sí, pues tú sabes, la gente tiene que destapar y abrirte lo privado para contarte, mira, esto fue lo que les pasó con esta casa. Man, y yo veo ahí que fue, just making it up, pero que fue González o fue Ramírez. That put him in the situation.
Fue otro latino que lo puso en esa situación.
Esa mierda a mí me duele. It really, really does. I'm like, man, like, you could have done better by them, man. And I'm not trying to judge anybody, but I'm like, man, esta gente, especialmente cuando es totalmente confianza a veces, Matt. ¿Me entiendes? A veces la gente lo está haciendo, mira, voy a confiar en Dios y voy a confiar en René. A ver cómo me va. ¿Me entiendes? Porque a veces, yo te voy a ser sincero, hay clientes que de verdad no saben lo que están leyendo, lo que están firmando. Y a veces es pura confianza, ¿me entiendes? Por eso a mí me gusta explicar, ¿me entiendes? Línea por línea, ¿me entiendes? No, pero la mayoría de gente sabe lo que, ¿me entiendes? Entonces, pero... Yeah, man, that always breaks my heart when I see stuff like that. Pero, la idea es que, pues sí, hay personas como Matt que están enseñando a personas como yo otra filosofía y yo pongo eso en Carlos y ahí vamos, ¿verdad,
correcto,
papá? Porque yo esto lo veo que yo lo quiero hacer a la larga, papá, ¿me entiendes? Esto de vender casas a mí me encanta, ¿verdad? You know what I mean? I love it.
Este es el trabajo más largo que yo he tenido en mi vida. He estado haciendo con mi papá, trabajando ahí, haciendo esto, después retail y ahora real estate, y he durado más en esto, porque sí, es una pasión que uno tiene, si en realidad le quiere ayudar a la gente, especialmente a la gente nuestra, a ir para adelante, que ellos entiendan la razón por qué deberían de tener sus casitas acá, por qué tener la inversión, ¿verdad? Pero encima de eso es, como siempre hemos hablado, ser honesto, ser recto, no tomarse ventaja de la gente, ser esa persona que ellos le llaman a ustedes para todo porque con ustedes tienen la confianza.
Así es.
Yo tengo clientes que todavía, 20 años atrás les vendí casa, estoy ayudando a los hijos ahora porque tú sabes que yo casi no vendo. Eso desde hace años dejé eso, pero todavía tengo esta clientela que me dicen, no, Matías, no me vayas a dar, a nadie me pongas ahí
con... No me vas a poner a René, Matías.
Con mi hija, no, con mi hijo, no. Tú tienes que decir, ok, fine. Okay. Entonces yo les ayudo. Pero sea como sea, ellos tienen esa confianza conmigo porque saben de que todo lo que yo les dije, como iban a salir las cosas, les salieron.
Así es.
They're seeing the fruits of what they've been putting the work in.
Que el realtor te dice tal y tal. Y si es profesional y sabe lo que está haciendo, así va a ser, ¿me entiendes? Así tiene que ser.
Correcto.
Usually. But, yeah, Matt, so I think we're rolling on like 2 hours, man.
Right?
Yeah, so, wrap it up.
4 minutes shy.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Matt, como te digo, tú fuiste uno de los que inspiraste este podcast. Te di la idea. Y eso es lo que me gusta de Matt. El otro día le digo yo, mira, porque yo le digo, Matt, mira, ya tengo el podcast. Y me dice, bueno, ¿y dónde está where's the marketing? Where you need it? He's always thinking bigger, man. And I love it, man. I love that energy. From Matt, you know, I take an idea to him and I come out with like, you know, a bigger idea. And I love that, man. So I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for coming by, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for starting Argent, man.
We need like a little KTL sign right here.
Yeah.
Too.
Argent sign.
Argent sign too right there.
Yeah.
We need that to be sponsored by Argent.
We're looking for sponsors. So
and this is where the rubber meet the road. Yeah, that's right.
No, but for real, man, all jokes aside, thanks you, man. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you coming back. Definitely part 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Origin story.
To be continued.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I know people want to hear about the strategies of how to become a millionaire through real estate. Whether it's just buying your first home or whether it's with the strategy of like, you know, long-term investment. Matt has knowledge of that, developing.
That'll be a great podcast.
There we go, man.
Yeah,
but
I've been there, I've done it, obviously, and there's a lot of things there to talk about because there are strategies for you to go out there and do those things and, you know, be able to take advantage of your tax liabilities and everything. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. But, you know, at the end of it, it's like you said, you guys are out here to inform the public. You know, whether they do business with you or not, at least the information is out there.
That's the idea, man.
And they can make wise decisions and hopefully protect themselves. You know, down the road.
That's the idea, man.
Definitely. And if you end up listening, I don't know how long this podcast is going to end up being.
We'll chop it up.
Yeah,
you'll have a lot of content there.
We'll chop it up.
No. Definitely the substance is there. The substance is there. I'm saying like, so the people out there who are going to listen to this, if you stuck through it and you got something out of it, please let us know. Feedback is important to us.
Man, appreciate it.
Drop a comment, leave a review. And if you need help buying or selling real estate or investing, you can find all our links down in the description. And big shout out to Matt. Thank you again for coming through.